Hello and welcome to another Pie and Smith production. It's the PDC World Darts Championships Day 4. Another 8 games today in another day of jam-packed action. We're going to have a quick look back on Day 3 and then we're going to preview a couple of the feature games on Day 4. I'm Adam Smido Smith. That man on your screen is Matt Pieman Hill. And firstly, I'm going to talk about my loss on yesterday's action, Boris Krcmar. I've had 2 single bets in the World Championship so far, and both have lost. So you're tuning in to exactly the right service where you're going to get all the value and all the losers. So Boris yesterday, the big Croatian, I think he averaged over 100 in the first set. Took it a
107.
Yeah, 107. Sent a message to the Pieman and said, "Well, this is going rather well, isn't it?" And then it all went downhill from there. He had a little bit of a shenanigans or slight darting disagreement in the second set, where Ron Meulenkamp was unhappy at Boris's fidgeting or clanging of the darts or general demeanour in a sterile environment, as it were, with no fans. So and that he got a slight warning from the ref, did Big Boris, and it kind of threw Boris off more than it did Meulenkamp. It was a strange second set. Meulenkamp took the second set for a 3-0 whitewash. He took the third set as well. Boris had chances in the fourth, but he was pretty much gone by then. So yeah, that's 0 from 2 for me. But in more positive news, the Pieman, who put up 6 3-0s in the first round, 3 of them have won and 1 of them have lost. So he did advise trebles and upwards, and 1 treble is already in. There's 2 games to come. They take place in a couple of days. But I'll just pass you over to Pieman for his most recent thoughts.
Yeah, cheers, Adam. We will touch on Boris quickly, but firstly, just on the trebles and up on the multiple front, we got 3 out of 4 in. About to talk to you about yesterday's winner, but the final 2, for anyone that's wondering what they are, they're both around even money, and they're both on Sunday. We've got Jason Lowe to beat Dmitry Gorbanov 3-0, and I can't remember what the other one is actually, but it's Martijn Kleermaker to beat the South African Cameron Carillison 3-0. So they're both on Sunday afternoon. So if you're looking for a bit of weekend action, we're in good form. It's a shame we haven't got the full house, really, but we won't dwell on that. We'll take the positives that we've got.
I haven't got any positives, so I'm glad you have, because I've not got any.
Someone's got to carry the ship.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll be sinking very soon. Right, so let's go through yesterday's action, obviously, and starting with the 3-0, a 5-2 winner. I'm not going to lie, this was a lucky winner. This was a very lucky winner. I basically said that I had full faith in Razma to polish off Suzuki. What I didn't anticipate was Suzuki to come out with a very solid scoring game. This was a really credible performance from the Japanese entrant. He was banging in the 140s, banging in the tons, and what that was doing was generating lots of chances for him. Unfortunately, he couldn't take those chances at the big moments. All three of the sets went 3-2. And I think in all 3 of the sets, Suzuki missed darts to win them. He missed 5 in the first set, 4 in the second set, and may have even missed a couple in the last set. But, it's easy to discredit Razma because it wasn't a vintage performance. But equally, this is a man who is not used to being on that stage as a favourite, really. He's always come in there not expecting anything of him. Suddenly he comes in there with everyone telling him this is an easy draw, and the Japanese player played really well. So Razma, credit to him, he hung in there. He took his chances. I thought he was really good on the doubling, actually. His scoring will obviously need to improve. He plays Gary Anderson next. I just want to say one thing. I was a bit disappointed to see John Part, who I absolutely love, by the way. Massive kite. But I was a bit disappointed to see him and Stuart Pike constantly referring their surprise at Razma going for the 19s. Anyone who's watched Madar's Razma play before, he's a regular 19s hitter. In fact, there's a bit of a running joke on social media about him banging in the 171s. And his 140 stats are notoriously always low because playing on the 19s, he hits loads of 133s. So I thought they kept saying, it's surprising that he's using the 19s. I wonder if he'll use the 19s against Gary Anderson. He will. So, yeah, just a lack of...
If we've got boxing commentators appearing to be a standing dish now on darts commentary, there's no reason why Matt Pieman Hill shouldn't be on there with knowledge that's surpassing even the likes of 3-time world champion John Part. Pieman needs a job.
I love John Part. This is not a propaganda thing for me, although I appreciate that. But Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was pretty basic knowledge. You know, you wouldn't go into a football match without knowing having some notes on all the players and stuff. So there we are. It wasn't like they just said it once. They said it about 10 times. You know, like, oh, why is he still persevering with these 19s? I'm just like, well, yeah, he's got to keep doing it. You know. Anyway, moving on. As I say, he plays Gary Anderson next. That'll be all dependent on Anderson, to be honest. But we'll deal with that as it comes. The next game, big upset yesterday. Biggest prize winner of the tournament so far, I think. Edward Shuji Fawkes, the mystery man from our quarter-by-quarter previews that we said we knew very little about, but wanted to know a lot more about, beat Mike De Decker 3-0. An outstanding first set where he averaged over a ton. He took out a 140 finish. It was sensational, and he managed to keep it going. He did dip a little bit, but overall a 91 average in a 3-0 win. Very impressive debut from Fawkes. And he plays Brendan Dolan in the next round, so I'm sure he'll have some supporters there after that performance. And he's around the 7-4 mark, I think.
He should have some supporters because he's 2-1 best price. 2-1 best price. I'm not saying he's going to win by any stretch. He might have a chance. I'm not saying he's nailed on to win, but that 2-1 is too big. He will not be going off 2-1. I'll tell you that. That game takes place on Tuesday. He will not be going off 2-1.
We said when looking at that game, De Decker and Fawkes, you wish there was a better player there because you would be happy to take Brendan Dolan on. Well, I'm happy to revise that opinion. I think Fawkes has proven himself to be a very good player. If he replicates that performance, he'd probably win. But I don't know. There's a lot of other factors to consider. So I'm not advising that. We'll deal with that on Tuesday.
I'm advising it. Back him at 2-1. He won't go off 2-1, and you can trade some out. He won't be 2-1 on.
Oh yeah, you're right. He won't be 2-1. I agree with you on that. Okay, let's pick up the pace. Ryan Murray beating Lawrence Ilagan 3-1. Ilagan always good value, and he didn't disappoint. He's a very very watchable player. Very erratic. He was screaming all around the arena when he was winning legs, but. Yeah, the match pivoted on the two sets that went the distance, and both were won by the Scotsman Murray. Both solid, average around 88. Murray plays MVG in round 2 and will need a career best to threaten the world number 1. And now the performance of the day for me: Daryl Gurney 3, Willie O'Connor 2. Gurney, someone we didn't give any love to in our preview, and I must say I'm happy to completely revise my stance on this. He was sensational. He averaged 108 in the opening 2 sets, raced it to a 2-0 lead, and didn't do a lot wrong in the third set. Right until closing it out, he missed a few match darts. Willie O'Connor had his darts in his pocket, ready to walk off stage, and then pulled them back out and made it 2-1. From there, the Irishman got the bit between his teeth, levelled it at 2-2, and was actually throwing for the match. So O'Connor went from about, Gurney was 102, 103, and then went all the way back out to underdog because O'Connor was effectively throwing for the game. But Gurney managed to grind it out. The game turned for me, I said this to yourself yesterday, on a Russ Bray miscount. Obviously, Russ Bray, legend of the game. But basically, this has happened a few times this year on the floor and in a couple of events. And I have had a worry that Russ Bray miscount is going to cause a problem in a match. And it kind of did here. O'Connor about to throw for the first leg of the 5th set, and Russ Bray corrected his count from an 88 to an 86. It was a pretty basic scoring issue. And he corrected it just as Willie O'Connor was going to throw this important dart. O'Connor had to step back, readdress the board, missed the darts. Gurney came in, broke, and O'Connor was dreadful after that. Seemed to throw him. He stormed off the stage. I don't know if he felt like that cost him, but yeah, not great. Don't want to see that happening, really.
It wasn't. It was very unsatisfactory in what was a pivotal moment in the game, to be honest. And like you say, I think it was 2-2 at the time, and O'Connor's the underdog, and yeah, not ideal. And
you can't fault Russ Bray. Obviously, he's not doing it on purpose. But you look at obviously Russ Bray is kind of the face that everyone recognises, and certainly the voice that everyone recognises. But I think like George Noble, Kirk Bevins, the other referees that we've got, like you don't see them making these errors, and maybe time is just catching up with Russ a little bit. But good performance from Willie O'Connor. Really, he couldn't get going, but he hung in there and he nearly won the match. So I thought he just ran into Gurney in really good form. Gurney also criticised the crowd noise, which I thought was interesting. He said that they were pumping in these oohs and ahs just as they were going to throw darts, and we saw that on the evening with Danny Lauby as well at a really big moment. So I'm wondering whether they're going to bin this crowd noise off. But
I think the crowd noise, going through your TV to home, fair enough. I can take it or leave it. I would prefer not. I don't have it on the football, for example. But the crowd noise to be pumped in the arena, as you say last night, it happened twice. You wouldn't want that to be happening in quarterfinals, semi-finals, or even finals. And it was when Lauby missed the second dart in hand, there was an ooh before he's throwing his third dart in hand. I think it was at something like a 7-7 or something strange like that.
That definitely affected him.
Yeah, and so you should either be doing it only after the last dart in hand has been thrown, or the winning dart, obviously, or not at all in the stadium or arena, whatever you want to call it. For me, I think that's a real issue, as you noticed. Social media went up about it as well, and it needs looking at. For sure. Because you can see your example given to me last night. Imagine if that happened to Gerwyn Price and it cost him, or Adrian Lewis. There'll be people walking off stage that you could see.
Yeah, it's not fair on these lads, Lauby and O'Connor, but they need to get it sorted before the semi-finals, quarter-finals kind of games, because those games we know that they could turn on one dart. And you do not want those one darts pulled because somebody's pressed the crowd noise button. And people will say, oh, they should be used to playing in front of crowds. It's very different playing in an arena where there's a constant sort of murmuring of noise to playing in somewhere that is silent and then somebody shouts. It is such a distraction. I would just bin it off completely if it was me, but it'd be interesting to see where they go with it, because there's a few players mentioned it now. Moving on to the evening session, we'll try and fly through these. Luke Woodhouse, Jamie Lewis.
Good match.
Fantastic match and a fantastic win for Jamie Lewis. We said this yesterday, it's very much dependent on how Jamie Lewis plays. Well, Luke Woodhouse showed the good and the bad side of him, really. The first two sets, raced into a 2-0 lead, looked really comfortable, showed why people like myself continue to big him up as an underrated player. And then in the remaining three sets, kind of showed why he hasn't broken the top 32 and hasn't established himself. He just dipped at the wrong time. Jamie Lewis, to be fair, upped his game massively, including the last set where he was absolutely fantastic. I think he averaged around 110 in that last set. Brilliant story. We've already talked about Jamie Lewis's problems this year. He's gone out there, 2-0 down, managed to come back. Unfortunately, it may well be the end of the road for him. He plays Gerwyn Price in the next round, and he's going to need something sensational to beat Price. But fair play to Jamie Lewis, and unfortunate for Luke Woodhouse, he'll have to come again. But he maybe needs to look at why this keeps happening to him.
Well, finished with 2 11 daughters, Jamie Lewis, and as we say, was basically retired 3 months ago, and he's just like you say, took a couple of 11 daughters there. I personally think he's going to be overruled by Gerwyn Price, but we'll find out in the coming days.
That is my fear as well, but good luck to him. We touched on the Boris Krcmar match, so I won't dwell on it, but obviously 1-0 up and 107 average, we were actually discussing whether we'd not got involved enough. But yeah, that was soon to unravel. Seemed to turn, as you say, on the flickering of his darts, which led to Ron Moulenkamp complaining to George Noble. He wouldn't complain to Boris himself, and you can't blame him, really. I mean, Boris is about 6'6", absolutely.
Well, as Ricky Hatton used to say, or would say, if you came home and Boris Krcmar was in bed with your missus, you took him in.
It's absolutely bang on as well. I sent you a picture yesterday of him with Darren Demolition Man Webster, and it's just sensational. Webster is like a child compared to Krcmar. It's but Boris will come again. We saw what he can do in that first set, but it all unravelled for him. And these things can happen with these inexperienced players. He's not really used to being on the Ali Pali stage. He came out firing. He hit a bit of adversity, and it kind of fell apart. But fair play to Moulenkamp. I thought that was one of the best performances I've seen from him in a long time. Not the most aesthetically pleasing player to watch. He's got a horrible looking throw, but he was hitting a lot of 2 treble visits, as you pointed out to me, and he was just keeping the pressure constantly on Krcmar, and he couldn't respond, Boris. So bit of a shame, but we'll move on. Just a couple more matches to touch on from last night. Ryan Searle, 3-2 against Danny Lauby. Fair play to the American. He made a real game of this. There was some fantastic finishes going in. Searle always seemed to be in control until it went 2-2, to be honest. Lauby out of nowhere put in a big finish to level the game up. And we went into a quite a tense last set, but Searle got over the line. And I thought this was a really good performance from Ryan Searle. You know, he was up against a player who was exceeding expectations, and he held it together really well. again, a match that sort of turned on one moment where Lauby approached the board going for the double. And as we've mentioned, the crowd noise came in, pulled the double, Searle stepped in, and that was game, set and match, really. But very impressive from the American. I would be keen to see him again next year. I thought he was brilliant.
Well, yeah, other than Daryl Gurney, who I think personally has been the best performance from a seed we've seen as yet, 99 average. I think that's better than Jose, who made a little bit hard work of it last night. Snakebite, who was hot and cold as normal. Ryan Searle at 98 average is by far the best average of any first round game. Gurney was in the second round. So yeah, fair play to Searle. He's been put in. I'll just mention it. So he plays Jeffrey Deswan in the second round, as we expected, and that's basically going to be a coin toss kind of game in terms of the odds. Yeah. So 10 to 11 kind of mark for Searle. So yeah, when I didn't see this game, but when I was getting the results from you, and he was telling me, it's gone to a final set and it's 3-2. That tells a slightly different story from what I was expecting, but it's Danny Lauby playing up to a level rather than, Searle at 98 average. That's probably hovering above where he normally plays. He's normally a 95, 96 kind of fella. So it's not that Searle struggled or anything like that. Danny Lauby is obviously put in a good performance, and I think that's a good foundation maker for someone like Searle, who we fancy to go okay in that quarter. Jeffrey awaits in the next round, then potentially Ian White or Kim Hybretts. I'm quietly confident about Searle.
Yeah, I think he's a good man to be on. He looked really impressive, and Gurney, much like Searle, they've both been through tough tests, and I think that stands you in good stead in the tournament. If you have a tough first game and come through it, you're already sharp and at your best. Last game of the night was Jose de Souza against Ross Smith. I've got to be honest, for a good half of this game, Jose was in a real battle here. He looked like he could go out on his opening night. Ross Smith was fantastic, averaging well over a ton in the openings of the game. Jose had to be at his very best to level it up. And then again, a game that pivoted on a moment. Ross Smith going for a checkout. I think it was a 106.
106.
He hit the treble 20. He hit another treble to leave double 8. And going for the double 8, he pulled it into the double 16, busting the 106. And it meant when he came back to the board, instead of having a double, he had 106 again, couldn't take it out. Jose came in, broke, won the game. Jose knew he's been in a battle. He was showing emotion that we don't often see from Jose de Souza, shaking his head, beating himself up a bit, but the old Jose started to come back as he relaxed, and he kind of said in his interview, look, I've really put a lot of importance on this game. Previous times I've been here, I've never won, and I really want to do well at Ali Pali. So that game, like Gurney, like Searle, should settle him in. I thought it was very impressive, Jose, in terms of his scoring and finishing, and that'll be a good experience for him. And unlucky Ross Smith, he would have beaten more seeds with that performance.
He would, yeah. For the 5th or 6th favourite of this competition, right, and someone that I've tipped up, if you like, it's his first ever win at the World Championship. I knew he'd been there before, and I knew he'd not done too well, but I didn't realise he'd never actually won a game at the World Championship. Well, he has now, and he'll play either Mervyn King or Max Hopp in the next round. So that concludes our quick goal, longer review than normal of day 3. It was a busy day, so that's all good. 8 games today. Same again. 3 games in the afternoon from round 1, followed by a round 2 game, which is Jamie Hughes against Adam Hunt, and then it's similar again in the evening. And the seeded game in the evening, if you like, is James Wade versus Callum Ridds. Wade is, fancied by a few. He was about 6th or 7th favourite in that region. Wayne Mardle from Sky actually has put Wade up as his winner of the tournament, but I wouldn't necessarily agree with that personally. But yeah, it's always a good barometer, if you like, Wade. So yeah, good game today against Callum Ridds, who I know you like.
Yeah, I think Ridds will give him a stern examination. Ridds fancied his chances in his interview, and of course, no hard feelings, but Callum Ridds is the only man that has let down the 3-0s. So he'll get what he deserves if he gets beat. But now, in all seriousness, I think that'll be a close game and a good test for Wade. He'll have to be heighted tonight from the start. Just whizzing through today's fixtures. Afternoon session for me looks a little bit one of the weaker sessions that we've had. Mickey Mansell versus Puha from New Zealand. A game I've not got a strong opinion on. Maybe Mansell to edge it. Labanowskis playing Liu from China. Again, you would think Labanowskis
is 1 to 10. Labanowskis.
Yeah, Liu's gonna need to come out and do what Edward Fawkes did yesterday and show us all that he's far better than we think he is, because we don't know an awful lot about him, to be honest. And then I do have a strong opinion on Wayne Jones, Kieran T, and I'm surprised that Kieran Tian is the outsider in that game, and I think he could beat Wayne Jones. So that's definitely the game of the afternoon for me. The second round action is Jamie Hughes versus Adam Hunt. Jamie Hughes, a seed that we've said, you wouldn't be totally opposed to going against, but Adam Hunt, again, is he the man to properly take advantage of a good draw? He played reasonably well against Lisa Ashton. I'm sure he can make a game of this, but it's not a game that I would have a strong opinion on personally. A really good evening session, though, today, I think. Dirk van Duijvenbode kicks off his campaign, one of the year's go-to men. He plays Bradley Brooks, the world youth champion. This could go either way, to be honest, if Bradley Brooks turns up and Dirk dips, but it's definitely... the onus is on Van Duijvenbode. He's in good nick. We know he's got the TV form. We know he'll feel comfortable, but he might have the Ali Pali nerves. I expect this to be quite high scoring and definitely worth a watch.
It's an open section for Dirk because Rob Cross awaits the winner of that game in the second round. Rob Cross is slightly vulnerable, I would suggest. So yeah, it'll be a bit of a. Sorry, it'll be a bit of a free hit for Duijvenbode. I think once he gets past, if he can get past Brooks, this will be the first game, possibly the only game he has all tournament where he'll be a strong favourite. Yeah.
So
he's 1 to 4. He's 1 to 4.
This is his banana skin, isn't it? And Bradley Brooks, we've seen world youth champions come onto this stage and perform. Luke Humphries, Dimitri Vandenberg. So let's not write him off completely. He's obviously got game to win the world youth championship. Some of the players you have to beat to get that. It's an impressive old list. John Henderson kicking off his campaign, not so big John Henderson. He plays Cantele, and you were saying he was around 4 to 7. I thought, you would expect Henderson to be shorter than that, but maybe an indicator of where his game is. He's not in great nick, John. He should have no problems against Cantele, you would think. But yeah,
well, certainly someone who feeds off the crowd, and unfortunately, as his physical appearance is improving, John Henderson, his darting performance maybe going the other way, as we've alluded to in our preview videos. A real shame to see his kite, reducing in his middle.
Nobody wants to see big John Henderson losing weight apart from his physician.
He's not small John Henderson, is he? He's big John Henderson. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he should win that game. But his game's not in a great place. And to be honest, last time we saw him on TV at the Players' Champs, he didn't play particularly well, so best watched, and we'll be cheering for Big John, obviously. Luke Humphries, Paul Lim. This one deserved a crowd, really. Paul Lim, fans' favourite, and everyone would have been right behind him. But as it is, behind closed doors, you'd have to fancy Humphries to make reasonably light work of Lim if he plays up to his standards. Not to discredit Paul Lim, he could still go with the best of them. But yeah, Luke Humphries is a far superior player now, and he's been touted by a few people to have a big run. He's had runs here before. He's a former world youth champion, as I mentioned. So if Luke Humphries comes with his best game, he can do damage in the tournament. It's all on him, really. Good luck to Paul Lim. Great to see him still turning up at the Ali Pali. And then, as we say, last game of the night, James Wade, Callum Ridds. A game that I think could go 5 sets, could be best a bit of a scare. Could be a bit of a scare for Wade, I think. But if I had to, gun to the head, I'd probably say that Wade will just edge through it. But I think Ridds, if he brings his scoring game, we've seen that Wade, the best way to get to Wade is to consistently pummel him with maximums. Because if you get into a scrap with him of ton 40s, he will take more decent finishes out than his opponent and just edge them. But if Ridds can sort of come with his 180 hitting and blast Wade early doors, it could get a really interesting feel to it, this game. So not one to be missed. And main fancy of the day is Tian to turn over Wayne Jones.
Yeah. There's nothing strong from me today from a betting point of view. Possibly looking at Ridds on the handicap, but that would need him to win 2 sets to get a payout. So I'm not sure. It feels like a bit of a 3-1 game to me, with Rids maybe missing a couple of set darts, to make it 2-2 or something like that. That's how I can see it going. Just with the experience and the grinding ability of Wade, as we always mention. So, yeah, that'll wrap up. Our day 4 preview. Shout outs to Mike and Ozzy in the comments. Thank you for watching and giving us a thumbs up and a bit of a comment. And if you've got any fancies today, or if you've had any winners this week, it'll be more than what I've had, because I've had 0. So let us know, and we'll speak to you soon. And there's plenty of action over the weekend. So thank you very much. Cheerio.
Cheers, guys.